Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to this Zimbra product update session. My name's Andrew Shingler. I'm part of the sales engineering team for the EMEA region. This presentation today is kind of in two halves. So we're going to go through Zimbra 10 primarily. We'll look at the new capabilities and features of Zimbra 10. I know some of you may have already been updated on this. We've done previous sessions, and then for the second half of it we will go through some upgrade and migration scenarios, particularly focusing on single server updates and single server migrations and how they can be achieved. So we've been doing a lot of work, and we've got documentation that we'll be able to provide through our support channels around going through these migration and upgrade scenarios. So on the call today, we've got myself, we've got Carlos Pineda, who's effectively, he's my counterpart, but he covers the Americas region. So he's going to take you through the first half of this presentation. Then we've got John Hurley, who's part of our advanced engineering team. So he's a senior manager on the advanced engineering team. So he's a long-term Zimbra person. He's got a wealth of experience and knowledge. So he's going to be helping out, giving us some insights and helping us with the Q&A. And similarly, Shashank Tiwari is part of our technical solutions engineering team. So he's very much involved in the support side of things. And say he's an expert on the Zimbra side of things, has been for a number of years. So what we will do, you should be able to see a Q&A panel in the WebEx session. So ideally, if you can post your questions there, we will have a Q&A session at the end. If we can answer them as we go along, we'll answer them in the Q&A panel. But then at the end of it, those questions and answers as possible. So what I will do, I'll hand it over to Carlos. He's going to take you through the first half of the presentation, and then he'll hand it back to me. So Carlos, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. So we go to here. So as Andrew mentioned, we're going to see some highlights about Zimbra 10. Then we're going to talk about the migration, upgrade paths, etc. And of course, we're going to answer the different questions. Okay, so Zimbra 10 marks a significant milestone in our commitment to provide customer and partner with the best email and solution. Zimbra 10 is the new consolidate our core code base and replace all the NG models with new ones. And the focus of Zimbra 10 is on improving stability, security, quality, user experience, performance, scalability. So these are the core areas that you had told us matter to you. And we have made that our top priority to address them in this release. Zimbra 10 provides the same or better feature that we had before, but also provides a foundation on which we can more easily make continuous improvement and add further capabilities. So as I mentioned before, we have new models. So we replace the NG models. So the new model, we have a new model for backup, for delegated administration, for storage management, and also for Zimbra Active Sync mobile option. For backup and restore, so Zimbra 10 brings back our backup and recovery methods. So now we have two backup methods available. One is the standard backup, using full backup and an incremental login, and also we have the auto group backup. Optimized storage. So backup now are compressed by default. Also the 7-day backup cycle instead of the 30 days backup cycle. Cost and domain-based backup as well as restore. We have better user experience. So from the new UI, you can manage the backup, manage the disk space, select the backup methods, etc. Backup can be created at different level. So in other words, you can create backup for a different scope. So you can take the Zimbra system or just a specific domain or just specific accounts. Dumpster was integrated with backup and restore. So now it's easy to manage and restore data that was deleted accidentally. Multiple restore methods are available now. An utility was included in the new Zimbra 10, so you can restore an ng backup to Zimbra 10. And we are going to have F3 support in the coming coming releases. Related about delegated administration, so Zimbra 10 brings granularity for administrator roles. So you can have delegated administrator to perform different tasks. You can being a specific task. So you can have administrator only to control the account creation or only password management. So you can define a specific task for the administrator, for delegated administrators. So delegated administrator can be assigned to either predefined or customer-defined rights and roles for maximum flexibility. That means when you install Zimbra 10, pre-configured administrator groups will be created automatically. So far we have 2 administrator groups. We have domain administration group and distribution list administration group. We're going to have more groups in the future, but you can define your own roles as well. About storage management. So before you have we have HSM. So now HSM we have now storage management. We have the same capability that we have in the past with HSM. As you know, HSM storage management is where you configure storage volume for primary, secondary data, and index. Storage management provides the ability to move all their data from the primary higher cost to secondary lower cost storage based on age. So this is the same capability that we had before with HSM. About the mobile active sync, the mobile active sync contains the same security and mobile device management that we had before. We support the latest devices. We support various versions of active sync. We support 16.1, 14.1, 12.1. We support shell folder and calendars. Mobile device security is a top priority for us. So Zimbra 10 support mobile device security policy, such as remote wipe, device password policy, SMI encryption policy. So remember before in Zimbra 9, we support SMI from the Zimbra web client. Right now in Zimbra 10, we can do it from the phone. The model also support allow block quarantine, the ABQ policy. So that feature allowed the administrator can manage the mobile device and ensure that only authorized devices can access the company data. Also, we have the auto discovery is supported. So it's easy for a customer, only you need the user ID and the password to configure your mobile device and access your data. Okay. New in Zimbra 10, we have a new Zimbra chat and video. Before we had the Zimbra Connect. Now we have a new Zimbra chat and video. This new chat and video is an enterprise solution. It's supported in classic and modern UI. That particular feature support chat one-to-one, group chat, archiving chat, and also you can do a video conference call. It's a SaaS offering. That means that, for instance, for the administrator, you don't have to care about the turn server or the video server. So because it's a SaaS offering, it's easy to configure this part of the solution. In the future, we're going to have on-premise solution, but it means that the history chat and the recording is going to be stored locally, but the video conference per se is going to be SaaS also. So it's nice because you don't have to care again for torrent server, video server, and that particular issues that you can have in the future when you try to configure the Zimbra chat and video. And the other was the briefcase and office, and only office is integrated. So we removed the drive. We don't have drive anymore. So we have a new briefcase. Briefcase is a solution that you can offer storage and collaborative editing of documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. So user can share folder and files. User can edit document as well. User can invite contributor to edit and review the same document simultaneously. Is full compatible with Microsoft Office document and other popular formats. Okay. And also, starting with Zimbra 10, we have a new way of naming product versions. So the customer or partner can know the level of risk or changes that come with a new version or a new release of the product. So you can see we have three different kind of changes. So you can have a patch, you have a minor release or a major release. In a patch means we introduce a fix for a security issue or a bug. A minor release means we introduce a new feature. And a major release means you have architectural changes. So if we see this example, for instance, if you go to 10.0, sorry, and go to 10.01, means that a fix was introduced for from 10.00 to 10.01. If you go to 10.01 to 10.02, means it's another fix. In this case, was in this example for a security fix. If you see the second path, if you go, for instance, from 10.01 to 10.10, means that we have a feature enhancement. So as you can see, it's better now to understand and to anticipate the risk that you have when this particular naming the way that we are not name the different version of the product. Okay. And now go to you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, just to reiterate on a couple of things there. So the chat and video component of Zimbra 10. So currently that is only available to our BSP partners, so the hosting partners. But at the end of the year, which will coincide with the development of the on-prem version as well, we will then be able to offer that to end customers and end users. So and also, yeah, be totally aware that the current version chat and video that's in the Zimbra 10 that's delivered as part of the package today, it is a cloud-based service at the moment, so it's fully cloud-based. But the on-prem, as they will come, it's realistically it's going to be the beginning of next year. So I'd say early 2024. Just to be clear on those. So yeah, this next section is really to take you through some of the options for the upgrade paths. I mean, we already have some documentation on our website in terms of upgrades for multi-server environments, but one of the things that has been missing for a little while is the ability to do single server upgrades. So what I'm going to do is take you through here at a very high level the process and the procedure for doing a single server upgrade. Either it'll be one of two. You can either do a sort of a rolling upgrade, which is effectively a side-by-side upgrade, or for that matter, you can do an in-place upgrade as well. And then we've got some specific things that we'd ask of you in terms of how you get access to the documentation for this and to work with our support team around the upgrade process. So we just want to be sure that you've got the right information, the right material, and we want to be sure that we're putting you on the right path in terms of being able to perform these upgrades. I'll just make myself present that. So I guess the first thing we need to highlight is obviously the end of life support dates for the current versions out there. So 8.8.15 open source edition and 8.8.15 network edition both have an end of life, which is basically the end of this year, 31st December 2023. What does that actually mean? So end of life means that we will no longer be developing and providing any patches, feature updates, security patches for those releases. So it is important that customers, start thinking about and planning to do upgrades to a supported version, because beyond those dates, then they won't be able to get, we won't be developing security patches specifically for these releases. So 8.8.15 end of this year, then 9.0 edition, network edition, that's slightly later, so that will be the 31st of March 2024 is the end date. So again, the same applies there, in that, from that point on, there will be no patch releases, feature updates, security patches for those. We do have a period of what we call technical guidance that carries on for another year. I can't remember the exact dates. I think with 9.0, I think we still have a technical guidance period on there, but essentially means we just do a best effort support. Again, we're not providing any patches or updates for it, just so those dates are kind of sealed into your memory there. As a part of the upgrade, now what Carlos was obviously taking you through there in terms of some of the new capabilities and features of Zimbra, we're removing effectively a lot of the NG, well, all of the NG components that were in the previous versions of Zimbra. And that means that there is a sort of change in the underlying technology, some of the configurations, some of, where the data is stored, some of how that data is actually interacted with in terms of an end user. But to do that, obviously, we need to be able to move that data from, the previous NG components, be that drive or the HSM or the delegated admin, HSM, and so on, into the new modules that are within Zimbra 10. So we've developed a specific migration utility that supports the migration of the underlying data and the configuration data of those particular components within there. There are some things you'll see there, like roadmap in terms of Connect data. So Connect is the previous version of the chat and video service. So at the moment, we don't have a migration tool that will support the movement of the chat and video data that comes from Connect, but that's obviously something that we're looking at and we'll hope to be able to provide as a part of a future release. But yeah, it's important to understand that not only is there an upgrade process, but there's a kind of a migration process of end user data into these new components. And this tool is specifically developed for doing that. So the first option we've got here is essentially a single server rolling upgrade. Now, what that means, in its simplest term, is you build another server, you side by side, and you migrate the data from your existing server to the new server. Now, you might want to do that. There could be various reasons for do that. One of the obvious ones is that you are running, say, an old version of a Linux operating system that's not compatible with Zimbra 10. So you want to be able to move to a new operating system at the same time. So in this example here, essentially what we're saying here is we've got an 8.8.15 current server. That could be 9.0. So 8.8.15 and 9.0, we can it can represent either in these diagrams and so on. But you're using a RHEL 7, so in this instance, if we wanted to actually move to a RHEL 8 and a Zimbra 10 environment. But essentially what we have to do is we create a new server. So we create a new virtual machine using the operating system that we want on there. We then have to deploy the same version, of Zimbra that's on the current production system. So in this instance, we'd deploy Zimbra 8.8.15, and then we'd enable the multi-master replica capability. So that is the ability to synchronize and replicate LDAP data from one server to the other. So we're starting that process of moving data from one system to the other. And then once we've done that, then we can effectively upgrade the target environment. So that new virtual machine that we deployed as 8815 in this instance, we created a multi-master replication agreement between the two. We've now got the data across there. Now we can do an upgrade to the Zimbra 10 version on that platform itself. And at that point, we point the LDAP sources and attributes to the target Zimbra 10 platform. We disable the LDAP service on the source platform, which is the old platform that you're moving from. Probably one of the important things you need to understand here is what is the service impact here. So relatively short downtime here required, downtime to restart services and so on to enable the MMR and to point the direction of the LDAP services in the correct direction. So you're minimizing the amount of downtime that might be involved in this upgrade and migration path. So now that we've got that, we can effectively start redirecting our proxy and MTA traffic onto the Zimbra 10 environment because we've now upgraded it. So effectively what we're doing is we're rerouting the IP addresses so that they're now talking to the Zimbra 10 PostFix MTA, they're talking to the Zimbra 10 Nginx proxy. So all the end user connections are coming in through the Zimbra 10 environment. Obviously, the mailbox and the mailbox data is still on the Zimbra 8815 environment at this point. But again, from a service impact point of view, relatively small amount of time as an outage because you're effectively just, again, redirecting IP addresses to point in a certain direction. So that can be fairly quick and short outages here. So the last piece of this is really effectively moving the user data from one server to the other. So we've got things like the Zimbra Drive data. You need to export the data using the NG tool, migration tool that I mentioned at the start of the presentation. So you need to export that data from your existing 8815 environment. Then we'll use the MMBox move, which is a tool many of you are probably familiar with in terms of moving mailboxes from one mailbox server to another. And effectively, we'll just move those mailboxes from our current 8815 environment to the new Zimbra 10 server. And then finally, we can import the drive data using the NG migration tool. The beauty of ZMMBox move is it's pretty much transparent to an end user because you're just moving even if they've got a relatively large mailbox size, you're moving the bulk of the data in the background, and then it's only at the very last minute does it actually then switch over to say, right, instead of directing the mailbox data traffic to the old server, it goes to the new server. So that's the point at which they're then fully on the Zimbra 10 environment. So again, this method is probably the least impacting in terms of outages and end user disruption. There will be some side effects of moving to some of the different components, particularly things like the ActiveSync components, so the mobile. Because we're effectively using a different ActiveSync engine in Zimbra 10, it will mean that the user's device will want to perform a resync. Now, in most instances, that should be, again, pretty much transparent to the end user. That will just happen as a matter of course. They won't necessarily have to be aware or put anything in. That we have found that there are some clients, because it's a client-driven protocol, there are some clients that don't necessarily take account of that resync command that comes in. I think we've seen sometimes on the Gmail app, sometimes that doesn't always issue that resync, and that might mean that the user has to go and effectively recreate the profile for their application. So that was the side-by-side migration, but where effectively you're building new infrastructure or you're doing a side-by-side migration. And as I say, the advantage of that is you've got a couple of advantages. One, if you wanted to update your operating system and your infrastructure, you can do it that way. And also, it has a minimal kind of impact on the end user's experience. The alternative is the in-place migration. So this is probably a bit more like a traditional upgrade where effectively you're just deploying Zimbra on the same server, You're just going through the process of installing it and deploying it, and it updates the packages on there. Pretty straightforward in terms of the steps. Again, you need to verify that your operating system is a supported version for Zimbra 10. Like any backup, as any upgrade that you ever do, make sure you've got a valid backup. Take a snapshot if possible. That should be just part of your runbook routine for doing any upgrade. Obviously, identify any customizations that might need to be reapplied to your environment. Again, these might be things that you've already done for previous upgrades and so on. You can run the sort of database integrity check. Again, it's always good idea before an upgrade just to run those integrity checks on your system to make sure that the data is consistent and in a good state. Again, we're using the NG migration tool because obviously we're still moving to different components in Zimbra 10. So again, we need to export the data from the previous NG modules, and then probably the final thing is just make sure that all your certificates are up to date and valid. There's just a few technical notes there. So upgrades will remove customizations. Hopefully you will be aware of whatever customizations that you've made on your platform, and you've got a record of them, and you've got maybe even easy ways of reapplying them. Some people just script things and so on. Again, obviously running a database integrity check does put a load on the system. You could do that out of hours. You don't have to do it, directly before the upgrade. You can run it, sort of 24 hours before or something, just to get that done. And the NG migration tool itself will need to be reinstalled after the upgrade, because effectively it will kind of it will remove the package. So you need to kind of reinstall the package to then restore the data. So once we've done that, effectively you would just go through a normal kind of upgrade process. You want to disable the access for the end users because you want to kind of block mail delivery coming to the platform. It's better if you can quiesce the platform as best as possible during these periods of time. Most mail servers will keep queue and spool mail for 24 hours or even longer. So it doesn't mean they're going to lose anything. It just means it's just putting a delay on when they'll receive that data. You go through the upgrade process, which is as you've probably done on several times previously. Reinstall the NG migration tools. You can restore that NG configuration data. Run obviously tests and so on. Make sure that the data is valid and it all looks like it. The upgrade has gone as expected, and then restore any user access and restore that access and mail delivery so users then can start using the platform again. In this instance, because you're doing an in-place one, you're going to have a higher outage time. So, we say there for a single server, you probably could want him to sort of plan for maybe 3 hours of downtime, but it will vary based on how much data you've got on the system, that sort of thing, how big are the mailboxes and so on. Yeah, so you probably, again, might have a feel for this when you've done previous upgrades and so on. But yeah, you need to plan for a block outage for doing an in-place upgrade. So one of the things that I said at the head of the session was that we have documentation specifically for the single server, the two options there, the in-place and the side-by-side migration. They're not currently published on our public website, and we do want you to work with our support team. So the process essentially is that, we would like yourselves and customers to actually log a support ticket. Our support team will be able to, they'll ask you, some certain questions around your environment, because there are some certain environments that currently are not compatible for upgrades or certain types of upgrades. For instance, if they're using an S3 object storage, then currently we can't, that can't be done as an in-place upgrade. That is something that we're targeting to be part of the, the updated tools for the migration. But what the support team will do is just ask a number of questions around, what's your current environment, what sort of storage technology you've got there, have you got S3 and so on, just to make sure that you're taking the right approach in terms of the environment that you're working with. They will then be able to supply you with the documentation to do this, and obviously they'll be on hand, to answer any support questions and so on during that upgrade process. Like any upgrade process, we would ask you to test it where possible. It's always good to try these upgrade processes in staging environments and so on. And we'd appreciate any feedback that you have around the documentation. I think at some point, and probably when we do the next release of the migration tool, we will then, and when we get more feedback on this migration process, we will probably just make this publicly available on our website, like all our other documentation. So with that, we're kind of open up to questions. Now I can see there's been a few coming in. So I think we've answered a fair few there.
Let's go ahead and talk about backup, because
I was gonna say, John, it might be a good one to start with.
People question about backup, and then we talk about the migration. So let's talk about backup. Why do we move back to the legacy? So you have to take a look at backup and ask yourself, what are people using backup for? Backup is originally designed for disaster recovery only, but people are using it for more than that. And so Zimbra and the real-time backup recovery is great in theory, but we have seen significant issues when a disaster happens. Either it is a complete loss, and we will have to purge the data out of the database and recreate, or we have extreme long restore times. We have customers who took about 3 months to do a restore. So we went back to the legacy for two purposes. We are going to incorporate the dumpster to use as a recovery method for the account. And then we will use the backup itself for disaster recovery. We are looking at we do understand the footprint right now is quite big, and we have a solution for that. And we are currently working with development to look at implementing that. It is, once it's out, it will be a much smaller footprint. We also understand that a lot of customers are moving to object store. And if you are using OCI or AWS, it's 9.7s. And a lot of customers have moved away from doing blob backups, because if you have a 9.7, you are pretty much guaranteed your data won't be lost, right? So there's a lot of changes in the market, and we are trying to, and we'll be focusing on usability functionality of the backup, not for current, but for future use. And we do apologize for the big footprint at this moment, but we are going to address this going forward.
Thank you, John. That's useful. There's just a couple of questions maybe I can pick off here. I'm just looking at the Q&A panel. There's one here. Actually, I think Shashank has actually answered it. Say, is it possible to add a new Zimbra 10 to a multi-server configuration and existing 8.8.15 until 9? The install prevents the new add server. Yeah, so I think Shash has come out. It's possible because I know we've focused, and maybe you could talk a little bit about this, John, because I know to some extent we've focused on single server here. Yeah, but actually, some of this applies to a multi-server environment as well, doesn't it?
So most of the steps are exactly the same. When you are upgrading a system from 8.8.15 or 9 to 10, you will have to update the LDAP. So updating the LDAP has nothing to do with the NG module. You can do a LDAP update in a multi-server right in place, or by adding new LDAPs with a new OS and then upgrading them at that point. And then so we do support backward compatible. 10 can go to a 9 MTA proxy mail store. Then you have to upgrade the proxy the same way. You upgrade them, traffic, put traffic to it, and traffic from 10 can go to a 9 or 8 mail store. Then you will upgrade the MTA, same backward compatible support. And at that time, now you have all your LDAP proxy MTAs are now at Daffodil, and now you have a choice with the mailbox stores. You can add a new 10 store to the system and use mailbox move to move the data from one to the other. In doing that, you want to use the migration tools to move your HSM configuration. And if you're using delegating admin, you move your admin and mobile configurations, because all that configuration resides in the LDAP. I'm sorry, mobile and admin resides in LDAP. Store configuration, which is HSM and docs, and that stuff related to the account. You will have to do it at the time of moving the account or installing this mail store. So once you install a new mail store, you have to configure the store HSM configuration by just doing the migration. Then the mailbox move will move the metadata of the account to the new server. All the configuration still resides in the LDAP. And then you will modify your configuration for if they are using docs, you want to migrate the docs after you do that configuration. So the documentation we create, the reason why we're focusing on a single server is it's easier to take that data and make the multi-server. Right now, we're almost done with the multi-server configuration or guide, and that will be out hopefully in a week or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I mean, just on, there was one question here. So just to be sure and understood correctly, the migration tool is ready for use and available through support now. That is the case. It's just that we do have an update coming soon, don't we, John? Yeah. So it is available now. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a working module right now. Anyone using block storage can use it. Reason why we are hesitant to make it public is because there is an S3 configuration issue, and we don't want to release it and have this big banner says don't use it for S3. And the problem is a lot people don't fully read documentation, and if you don't do the configuration correctly, you can lose your data. So we're very hesitant of making it completely public in the case of the S3 situation. We are releasing a new module maybe next month that will address all this configuration, and then we can make it public.
Actually, one other, there's something coming here from Daniel is saying rolling upgrades is the only supported method for multi-node environment migration. I mean, that's not strictly true, is it? I mean, you could do it in place.
Yeah, if the OS is supporting on both versions, you can do it in place.
Yeah,
it's all based on OS configuration.
Yeah. So in essence, I say, to some extent we've focused on single service here, but a lot of this still applies, in a multi-server environment as well. So yeah, that can apply there too. There's a few other ones here. I'll just go through quickly. So Yika said, how does OnlyOffice install into a split UI environment, Mailstore or UI? Actually, we don't support split UI, and we haven't done for some time, for quite a long time, split UI. So, I mean, the OnlyOffice component of the Zimbra 10 is actually on the mailbox server anyway. But yeah, just to be clear, split UI, I don't know, John, we deprecated the support for that for quite a few years back, I think, didn't we?
We have, we know there's some customers out there using it.
Yeah.
We have to reconsider how to move forward on that. There is discussion on what is the best next steps to support a DR situation. And so we need, I know many of you, like me, have been with Zimbra, and we've gone through this always on architecture multiple times. And, we are, it is still something we're talking about and how we do it. We are looking at how to do it in the current environment, and what are the correct options to do to support now and going forward.
Yeah. Okay. Just picking up on a few others that I can see coming in. No, actually, so there's one just coming now. Aside from the removal of NG modules in Zimbra 10, is there any new features for server management like mailbox replication, multiple DB, microservices, something else? No, I mean, a lot of the back end stuff has not really changed. I mean, there obviously the new chat and video, some of the front end services, sort of end user services like the Office components as well. That's obviously new. I mean, to some extent, partly the reason that we're doing this and making these changes in Zimbra 10, particularly around moving away from the NG modules, that's partly so that we can start doing more work like that and start changing, creating our roadmap around some of those things that we want to do. One of the challenges that we've found with the NG modules, because they're developed under a third-party agreement, is that it means that we don't have full control over the code. So the fact that we now have full control over the code means it's much easier for us to make significant changes to the platform as well.
And another statement about that, another reason why we moved away is supportability. Many of our delays have been not within our own team, but working directly with a third party.
Yeah, because obviously that puts in a delay in terms of that support turnaround time and so on. So again, it it allows us to do that. Philip says, are there any new features from a sales perspective? Primarily, it's the chat and video stuff. I think the Office component, whilst it's similar to, I think the chat and video, if you've not used it, and I say it's only available at the moment for BSPs, but if you've not used it and not tried it, I think you'll find it, in terms of its capability compared to maybe Connect, it's a lot richer, it's a lot more professional capability within there, the chat and video, and actually the Office component as well, the editing of documents and so on, because it's using an only Office engine. That's probably one of the better engines for editing. It's certainly one that if you look at it, it looks much more like using Microsoft tools, which is not a bad thing. So yeah, there's sort of two things I'll say there.
Another thing you're going to see is this is just the first start. I mean, because we are working on many requests that have been requested for a long time. For example, mail recall is a feature. Also, hiding gal is being worked on. And so when we do like a 10.1 release, you're going to see significant changes, and it's going to be hopefully we're expecting it to be a rapid release cycle.
Yeah. Philip's come back with a follow-up on that. Is chat and video included in professional license? No, it's not. So it is licensed separately in the same way that Connect was licensed separately. So yeah, it does incur. I say at the moment it's only part of the BSP program, but as you say, then there's a separate sort of license component for that. What else have we got here? I'm checking some questions are in the chat, some are in the Q&A. There is additional licenses for this issue. Okay. Please, in case of timber. Okay, yeah, I think you're asking. In the case of Zimbra 10 multi-server installation, can it be replicated in a backup site? There is additional licenses for this issue. No, I mean technically, from a licensing, I mean, for instance, if you deploy Zimbra, we issue you with what we call a regular license. Now, under that entitlement, I mean, the way the licensing works is that normally we issue a license, it has 10 activations, 5 activations by default. You are allowed to use that license, obviously, for your production environment, but you can then also use it for backup environments, test environments, staging environments, failover environments, and so on. So as long as you're not using it, the same license for another production service, you can use that same license. So that's typically how we handle licensing for HA and failover type replication setups and so on. So Charles said difference between regular license and a Xert license. Well, Xert isn't a license. Xert is actually a It's a mechanism we have for reporting. So when you're a BSP, we need to know how many, because we give you a license to grow. So as a BSP, we might issue you with a license for 4,000 mailboxes, whereas you might only be hosting 900. So Xert just basically every day tells us how many licenses you've consumed, because it's a consumption-based model. So Xert is just the tool that tells us, okay, today you've got 100 licenses, tomorrow you've got 110, etc., etc. Few other questions. Is Zimbra 10 support HA implemented? I mean, support HA, I mean, yes, it's still infrastructure based. So if you were using something like VMware HA or Proxmox or something like that, yeah, you know, you can use that infrastructure high availability, you know, with proxies and MTAs, you can just sit them behind load balancers. So you've got high availability there. So there's nothing specifically new in Zimbra 10 around high availability, but you can still leverage all the same kind of infrastructure techniques that we've used in other environments. Are there any further plans for a Zimbra desktop app? Well, there is a new Zimbra desktop app if you've not seen it. So there is a new Zimbra desktop app that we released a few months ago, and it's based on the modern UI. It's using a similar technology, so that will be developed going further. The old Zimbra desktop became quite ancient and had a lot of ancient components in there. So yeah, I don't think it'll even work. The old one, I don't think it'll even work with the Zimbra 10 environment. But yeah, the new one, yeah, we obviously want to continue the development of that. You know, because it includes SMIME support as well within there as well. I think, John, you just yeah, you've answered the ZCO question. Yeah.
The ZCO is, I mean, the ZCO, we have one version. It'll be flagged as 10, but it can be used backwards compatible. It supports 9.8, unlike previous it recognizes what version and utilizes the availability of the feature set at that version.
Yeah, actually, Gabriella has come with a good question. Can we consider the NG migration utility ready, or are we still in beta as stated in the documents? Yeah, that's a bit confusing because we do say beta, don't we, John? But
yeah, so we need to clean up our documentation. The beta needs to be removed. It is really, people can use it. There are known bugs. This is why we are asking to work with support for guidance. Because if you come in and you say, I have using Object Store, we're going to say, hold off until we have this new, the updated version, which has all the fixes for Object Store. If you use block storage, no, well, you can use the utility. It's ready to go.
Yeah. Good stuff. Philip, I see. Yeah, another Zimbra desktop. Will there be a true offline mode where you can have all your data offline? Yeah, I mean that is part of the roadmap for the Zimbra desktop. As you're right, because when you go offline, there are certain things that you can't do. There's certain data that doesn't necessarily, you either can't work with or doesn't synchronize. But yeah, the plan is to make that more of a fully fledged offline capable desktop app, because we think it's important. I think we do have our own desktop app because it allows us to surface more of the capability of Zimbra to the end user through a desktop app, and people do like that ability. And I think I can't talk specifically to the roadmap, but I think there is a desire also to bring some of the chat and video capabilities into the desktop app as well. So we're kind of we're running up to time, gone a little bit over. I think the questions are generally dried up now. I think we've answered most of them. Thank you, Shash. You seem to have been quite busy typing responses to those. So
Shash gave me 3 more. Can I go through these 3 really quickly and then we end the call?
So is there more? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's 3 more. So the first one is in Zimbra 10 briefcase, work as a previous version. ZM mailbox move will migrate briefcase documents as well. So the question is yes for both. The briefcase work exactly the same way. if you install OpenOffice, you now have the feature to be able to render and edit them in Briefcase. But Zim Mailbox Move will move data in Briefcase from one server to the other, from 8:15, 9 to 10, or 10 to 10. So the second question is, so how to migrate the user data from 8:15 to 10 on a new server? So the recommendation is to use the rolling upgrade, where you will install a new server with 8:15, configure your old server to connect or connect to the 10 server. I mean, the target 10 server, I should say. So the modules, LDAP proxy, MTA, and mailbox servers are all pointing to that new LDAP. Now you upgrade that server. Now you have a server that has Daffodil, which is completely clean, and you have your old server, and then you can go ahead and do your testing, direct your traffic through the new proxy, and then use Mailbox Move to move the data from the old 8:15 to the 10 server with using the migration tools. And that is the document we have for the in-place upgrade using rolling up, using the single server rolling upgrade document. We have that created. And the last one, I'm not 100% sure. I believe the answer is, I don't know. It is, can you install only Office as a standalone server? I need to take a look at that, and we can go ahead and put that on the Q&A question list.
Okay, there's just a couple of others that are coming, John. Quickly, we could probably quickly answer and be of interest to most people on here. Support for RHEL 9 and Ubuntu 22. I know it's on the radar. Do we
are looking at in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
There's some things that we have to do, and it is taking us a little bit longer to support those two versions.
Someone says, "Oh, can we get the presentation?" I think Anig will be posting this video on YouTube, so yeah, it will be made more publicly available that way as well.
So last question is, many classic UIs left out of modern UIs. Ours are planning to include them. Yes, we are slowly working on identifying features and add them to the modern UI.
Excellent. Right. I'll say thank you to all of you that have attended. I hope it's been a good session and a useful session. And I'd like to thank my colleagues here, Carlos, John, Shashank, and Anig, for being part of this webinar as well. So I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and we'll speak to you soon.